When the lights go out and the power grids across America catastrophically fail, all of the rules are going to change. Something is going to happen to every single North American subconsciously. A clock is going to start in their minds, a countdown to when the power is coming back. Because when that happens, the first thing they're going to do is rush to whatever device they prefer, a TV, a tablet, a computer, a smartphone, to find out what happened. What is the government saying? Are we going to have power for an hour, a day, a week? Is it back on permanently? What do we need to do? All of their questions will be directed at those devices. Nobody's going to be looking to themselves, their neighbors, their friends at this moment in time. They're going to run right back to the government. And it will be evidence of something. Many people have talked about the series Jericho from years ago and how great it was and how close it was, they thought, to what would happen in North America if there were large-scale nuclear attacks or there were a huge hiccup, what they call a grid down or a shit-it's-the-fan situation. What many people don't remember about the series is that they led with something that is specific to almost all North Americans, personal relationships. That's what this channel talks about, the war of the mind. If you remember correctly, the first major storyline in Jericho had nothing to do with how people affected survival. It was this guy back here in the orange V-neck, married to this girl right here in the brown hair with the kind of the green paisley dress. They were married, but they were just going through the motions. Just day to day, they weren't happy. He, I don't remember the actor's name, was carrying on with this waitress. And that reality came to the surface, and that caused all sorts of problems. Now, they didn't make a real big deal of it, but it's going to be a much bigger deal in reality. Much greater than your ability to use a ballistic weapon. There are many channels on YouTube and other places that will teach you how to choose a proper weapon, how to load it, how to unload it, how to take it apart, how to clean it, how to use it. This is not that channel. Many channels will teach you how to build shelters and effect good wilderness survival. If you think that's your eventuality, I would encourage, go watch, go take notes, and go listen. But I truly don't believe this is going to be the big challenge. Nor do I believe that having an entire army surplus store plus a grocery store stocked up in your basement is going to fix the problems that most North Americans are going to face during a grid down, shit-it's-the-fan situation. The biggest problems are going to occur between our ears. Our fear of the unknown, the constructs that we have created around us are all going to fall apart. Our ability to adapt to a changing environment, back to reality, is going to be the key. We've just finished up a 4-part, somewhat controversial series about women during shit-it's-the-fan and the challenges they might face and how making decisions differently now might affect better survival in the future. It has been met with a great deal of pushback. We started also recently a series about men and the challenges we are going to face. Things that we perhaps may not have foreseen. We're going to have part 2 of that series up either early tomorrow morning or afternoon. So stay tuned. Join us over at Patreon, please. It's only $1 US per month, not per video, not per week. It's even less, 90 cents per month if you sign up for an entire year. Gloves off, completely unredacted truth. about the realities that are going to face men and women in North America as regards the mind. Would love to have you there. There are a lot of really great guys that have their beans, bullets, and band-aids dialed in perfectly that are going to end up in FEMA camps because they haven't prepared their minds. They really didn't know what the true battle was going to be. Do these guys here looking at you look like a bunch of social butterflies? Do they look like beta guys? Do they look like guys that wouldn't fight moment's notice? Look closely. There's something coming that most guys aren't seeing. Many believe this is going to be their future. I'm just going to ride off into the sunset. I'm going to be the lone wolf. I'm going to tactically camp. I'm going to be mobile. This isn't going to get it done. This will not get it done. This will. I've used images like this from the series Colony before. It is a case study in psychology, all of the relationships, all of the different one-on-one interactions. This particular one is, of course, the character. I don't know the actor's name. I should have looked it up. The character's name is Eric Broussard. This is, of course, Sarah Wayne Kais playing Katy Bowman. This is her contact in the underground, in the resistance, or their version, truly, of the Maquis. This is the only guy in the entire series, based on my analysis, that got it right. He is the only one who got it right. And the only one who actually called her out on her hypocrisy and said, you need to choose whether you're going to be a resistance fighter or whether you're going to be a mom. Because the choices you're making right now are entirely contradictory. And he was there every time she needed him to be there. But from her perspective, it was the one person she couldn't manipulate. It's a very interesting study. I would highly encourage anyone to go, who is interested in the War of the Mind, to go watch Colony, the series, and specifically pay attention to the conversations between Eric Broussard and Katy Bowman. Many men would identify with this statement. The best part about being alone is that you really don't have to answer to anybody. You do what you want. Just like Eric Cartman said, I do what I want. Who would want this inscribed on their tombstone? He did what he wanted to do, whenever he wanted to do it. The Justin Timberlake School of Survival. Is that really who you're going to identify with, men? And ladies, I'd like to ask you a question. Are you going to morally identify with the Beyonce school of relationship advice? If you like it, you should have put a ring on it. If you like it, you should have put a ring on it. Ladies, to be honest with you, if he put a ring on it simply for access to a certain thing, and he's just trying to not lose half his stuff by staying with you, long-term, congratulations. You have an indentured servant, not a husband. If it was about a moment, and that moment has passed, and you've realized that it's just about going through the motions, just like we saw in Jericho, and the only reason he's still around, honoring his commitment made before the government-authorized pastor, you have an indentured servant. He's just trying to not lose half his shit. Congratulations. That was actually covered in the series Outlander. Something that a lot of people missed. They talked about these two boys that they had encountered, the two main characters, that had been sold into indentured servitude to pay a debt, that had papers. They came with papers. Just like sometimes men come with papers. And when the debt is finally satisfied, then the release. At least indentured servitudes had a date of release. Men trying to not lose half their stuff do not ever have a date of release. 1/2 to 2/3 of all immigrants, pay attention to this. 1/2 to 2/3 of all immigrants to colonial America, you remember the good old days of liberty and freedom, the ones we want to go back to, arrived as indentured servants. At times, as many as 75% of the population of some colonies were under terms of indenture. Labor shortages in England and in the colonies. Criminals convicted of a capital crime in England could be transported in lieu of a death sentence. Servitude also could result from indebtedness, where a person, their spouse or parents, owed money, and the person was sold into servitude to recover the debt. This was done with many adult-age children, 15, 16, 17 years old. 1/2 to 2/3. In the great age of liberty, in the great age of freedom, people fighting for, that's the reality. You see, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. James 1:17 in the Bible. Now, I'd like to share this image because it shows something that many people don't see. It shows men choosing their chains. That's right. Men choose their chains. You see, the guy on the left has chosen his chains. What are his chains? Well, you see, he's not going to be deprived of the deliciousness of food ever in his life. He's chained to a bed. He's chained to the idea that he's likely never going to be the object of affection of a woman ever again in his life. But boy, I tell you what, that 2-pound cheeseburger with everything he loves on it, that's going to be his for the asking. That's the chains he's chosen. He has his liberty with food, but yet he has his chains otherwise. Now the guy on the right, he's chosen a different set of chains. He's not so interested in the flavor of the cheeseburger, the deliciousness of a large supreme pizza, or pounding down 50 chicken wings and 2 pitchers of beer with the boys. He has a different set of chains, but I guarantee there are a lot of women that he is going to enjoy the company of, the affection of, the one gift from God we got right off the bat. As many as he wants for the rest of his life. You see, that guy on the right, he's going to feast on the look. And those guys who know the look will know what I'm talking about. Ladies don't like to admit it, but you know too. That look, that moment, it gives you the ability to slice the heart of a man right out of his chest if you want to. But we all know the look. We all know that moment. And it's worth more than 10,000 cheeseburgers or 1,000,000 pizzas. And that's the reality of it. Sometimes we need a little help understanding all of the different looks we get from the women in our lives. But in comparison, there is no comparison. This is why I've used this image so much, because I stumbled upon it, really. But it shows something. You see, in a survival situation, ladies, maybe he's not that guy that gives you the case of the screaming thigh sweats. And guys, maybe she's not a bikini model. But if you have something that you can give each other, something that you can grant each other that neither one of you are worthy of, by the way, and that's Bible, that can make the relationship more than about what it can give one or the other. I've shown images like this before, and this particular one I think is important to show because this particular young woman is owed an apology by about 20 to 25 million Americans. See, this is Jenny McCarthy. She was anti-vax before anti-vax was cool. And everything you're saying now about being anti-vax, she was saying decades ago. Decades and decades ago. But she was dismissed roundly by the Christian right, by the conservative right, because she was a leftist from Hollywood. She was laughed at and scorned and made fun of because of all of the other choices that she's made. But in this particular case, a subject that would be far more important to most people, she was 100% dead on right, and you owe her an apology for treating her the way that you did. Some people push back and say, I thought I had found somebody that I really could trust, but then they cheated. How can I possibly forgive such a thing? You see, cheating is just evidence of truth, of what the relationship really was. There are all sorts of ways you can cheat. Self-gratification, treating a relationship like a video game when you get bored. But when the lights go out, that's what this has really been all about. When the lights go out, the reality is going to set in. The reality is going to bubble to the surface, and people are not going to be able to hide it anymore. I've used this imagery from Colony because there's something here that I've not mentioned specifically, but I think now it's the time to. The characters had a moment where it was no longer about either one of them. Yeah, sure, wonderful. He thought, gosh, how lucky am I to have this beautiful woman, 20 years younger than me, want to be with me. And she was like, how lucky am I to have encountered this guy who can now save my child's life? But it all came down to saving the child's life. Because once he realized, once he knew the reason that she was entering the relationship with him, it stopped being about how pretty she was. It stopped being about how young she was. It was about something far, far greater that was way beyond anything they could do for each other. It was about keeping a child, an innocent child, alive. And the weirdest part, I know, like Florida Maquis, it was just a TV show. They ended up leaving their spouses in real life for each other with a 20-year age gap. Do not underestimate the power of psychology, because these guys sure don't. These guys will not underestimate it in the least. They have been in school every day that they have been locked up, learning how to control their minds and how to use their minds to control the situation around them. See, Hollywood makes them look like Zach McGowan. Somebody that would, of course, make a lot of young ladies, and maybe older ladies, have a case of the screaming thigh sweats and result in that look, so to speak. If you're a slave to that, you'll be a victim of it. Make sure you have the right partner, because you're never going to do it alone. You are never, never going to survive when the lights go out alone. I know this has been a long video, and we've covered a lot of ground. But this is what it's really all about. The war of the mind. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. Join us over at Patreon. We would love to have you. If you appreciate this kind of content, what we have over there is 100 times better. And like I said, part 2 of men's survival, grid down, shit it's the fan, perhaps later tonight, definitely tomorrow. I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.